The first experiences of humans with art date from prehistoric times, when men drew animals on the walls of their caves. Their compositions have marked the beginning of the figurative art, which was later adopted by different artists until the 19th century. This artistic style, also known as the representative art, represents something easily recognizable by most people. This movement has evolved over the years, but never changed its fundamental principle, that is to represent the visible by drawing or painting landscapes, objects, or portraits. In the late 19th century, more specifically at 1910, and thanks to Wassily Kandinsky, a revolutionary artistic style was born, the abstract art. Strictly speaking, the word abstract means to separate or withdraw something from something else. In this context, it is the composition that is independent and separated from any visual references that we have in the world. Even if those two styles draw from fundamental elements of painting, such as color, shape, and line, they are radically different, since abstract art is based on imagination and creation. By the time several pioneers of the movement developed signature techniques that helped shape the course of abstraction. One of the most remarkable is Jackson Pollock, who created an innovative method to abstract art. Jackson Pollock was an American painter born in 1912 at Cody in Wyoming, who painted all through his lifetime and was well known for it. Pollock was introduced to the use of liquid paint in 1936 at a workshop in New York City by the Mexican muralist David Alfredo Siqueiros. He started painting in the traditional ways, using an easel, a canvas, and brushes. Then Pollock was influenced by the work of Thomas Hart Benton, Pablo Picasso, and John Miro. After, he began painting with his canvas laid on the studio floor and using hardened brushes, sticks, and even Bastin syringes as paint applicators. That was the beginning of what was later called his drip technique. One of the most famous paintings he did with this technique is the number 5 that he created in 1948. This huge canvas, measuring 8 feet by 4, is one of the last compositions he made before his death in 1956. At its output, this painting created a lot of controversy because of its extreme abstraction. This painting is so unique and original and is also a perfect representation of the abstract expressionism movement to which Jackson Pollock was part of. He in fact participated in the development of this movement along with other American painters such as Mark Rothko and William de Koolen in the 1940s and 1950s. The term of abstract expressionism movement is applied to a new form of abstract art that is often characterized by gestual brush strokes or mark making and the impression of spontaneity. This extreme form of abstraction divides the critics. While so many people praise the immediacy and spontaneity of the creation, others deride the random effects. But as a supporter of innovation, I am of those who support this movement and are amazed by Jackson Pollock's work for how it is unique and creative. The fundamental reason that led me to support Pollock's work is how it shows so much liberty, starting from its realization to its interpretation. His revolutionary technique of gestual painting, also called the all-over painting or the action painting, freed generations of American artists from academic strictures. The drip technique consists of pouring or splashing liquid into a horizontal surface as opposite to being carefully applied like it was traditionally, enabling the painter to view and paint his canvas from all angles since he covered the entire canvas and used the force of his whole body to paint, often in a frenetic dancing style. By By defying the conventions of painting on a vertical surface, Jackson Pollock added a new dimension by being able to view and apply the paint on his canvas from all sides. Pollock testified that he was always having fun creating this composition and that the distance he created between him and the canvas made him feel as part of the composition. He says, "On the floor, I am more at ease. I feel nearer, more part of the painting, since this way I can walk around it, work from the four sides, and literally be in the painting." Pollock's compositions were free to the viewer's interpretation, since his paintings weren't representations of any physical object, but more of dimensions of the mind and material. There is no definitive thing in his artwork that anybody can see better or worse than another person looking. So in other words, it is an absolutely subjective experience looking at his compositions. Pollock always wanted his audience to have a personal look at his work, and he cared not to influence their interpretations. That led him to abundant titles and start numbering his works. He said about that, "Numbers are neutral. They make people look at a picture for what it is, pure painting. So, without being influenced by the title of the paint and not to try to understand it by passing through the title." For the number 5 painting, Pollock chose the use of liquid paint. More specifically, there were synthetic resin paint. The colors he used are gray, brown, white, and yellow paint drizzled in a beautiful way that make people perceive it as a dense bird's nest, but others can interpret it differently. Personally, this painting embodies the state of mind of a stressed person or a lost one. The lines that mingle symbolize the confusion, but because of the light yellow and the white, I assume that the situation is under control and that quickly things will get well. To end up, Pollock denied reliance on the accident, contrary to what some people might think. He usually had a clear idea of how he wanted a particular work to appear. His technique combined to the movement of his body over which he has control, the viscous flow of paint, the force of gravity, and the absorption of paint into the canvas. This composition is a mixture of controllable and uncontrollable factors, which makes it so unique and interesting to look at because it frees the spirit to interpret it based upon the viewer's individual experiences and associations. Unlike any abstract composition, there are always people who try to search for figurative elements and to put them in parallel with the real world, when you don't have to. People who appreciate abstract art are those who look at them for what they really are, simply abstract art. And for those who have ever wondered what was the most expensive art composition in the world, here it is. It is the number 5 by Jackson Pollock that was sold $140 million in 2006. Thank you for listening to me.